Hi, I'm Jordan the Knight of Gold, and I'm trying to answer at least 52 questions associated with DC Comics as I count down to my birthday. Today is day 27, and I'm going to answer the question of what are my favorite Batman arcs. I'm going to tag the person down below because for some reason I wasn't able to record a response directly to the comment. But yeah, my favorite Batman arcs right now are some of the more recent stuff, and you can dunk on me for not liking some of the older stuff as much. I do have favorites from older points in Batman history, but my favorite eras of Batman are from in the 20th century. So my first favorite, absolute favorite era of Batman is Grant Morrison's Batman. Grant Morrison was working with a killer era of illustrators to work with them. Just Batman has never looked better at any point. And yeah, the story is just amazing. We got the introduction of Damian Wayne, we got Barbatos, we got Dr. Hurt, we got to introduce Batman Inc. and all the Batman of Many Nations stuff, all that stuff. We got to explore Batman's divorce, basically. And yeah, it was a really great era of Batman. There's so much cool stuff in that it deserves probably a 3-hour breakdown. It's such a good era of Batman. If you've never read Grant Morrison's Batman, you absolutely should. I would not recommend Grant Morrison's Batman as your first Batman era. Do not go into that. You need to read a few more Batman stories before you tackle Grant Morrison's Batman. But Grant Morrison's Batman is so good. It's so worth it. It is absolutely one of the most rewarding eras of Batman, period. It is long and it is so well told. I just cannot praise it enough. It is easily some of Grant's best work as well. But my next favorite era of Batman comics is actually going to be James Tynion's and Eddie Barrows, because he was the main artist, Detective Comics Rebirth era. So this is the era where Batman is basically trying to make a new squad in Gotham made out of the younger heroes. It's basically an X-Men book with Batman characters, and James Tynion tells some excellent stories about the Batman family in a way that hasn't been done in a long time, because we focus on different pairs of the Batman family and Batman as a solo character. But this is the era where we could see the Batman family mainstream continuity work together as a family and do cool stuff together, and it's just so good. And like I said, it feels like an X-Men book in the way that it kind of builds its soap opera elements while also telling its story at the same time, and it investigates its characters so well. This is such a great era of Batman. You get such good relationships with Clayface, with Cassandra Cain, with Tim Drake, and Azrael, Nightwing, or no, not Nightwing, Batwing even gets some love in there. And yeah, this is just such a great era of Batman comics. I love it so much. I will recommend that one as a new reader-friendly era of Batman comics, because you don't need to know a ton about the characters involved. You can start at that point and enjoy it from there. So James Tynion's Detective Comics era, during the DC Rebirth era, is so good. I highly recommend that one. And then my third favorite era of Batman comics, and I'm going to mention something. There's a bridge kind of between these two eras, which is Batman and Robin Eternal, which is a 26-issue weekly comic this was basically an era where the Robins had to protect Gotham from this big, huge threat, while Bruce was amnesiac and didn't remember that he was Batman, and he doesn't really play a big part in this story, but it is such an excellent bridge between James Tynion's era of Detective Comics Rebirth and the previous Scott Snyder era of Batman, because Scott Snyder, when he came on, he's kind of a transition point from Grant Morrison to the New 52 and then to James Tynion. There's a clear chain between these writers as well. And yeah, Scott Snyder did a great job on Batman. It was basically, I think the best way to describe Scott Snyder's era on Batman is Batman the Animated Series, but Grant Morrison's mega story and done with a tinge of horror as the overarching theme, because it definitely felt like it was being iconically Batman in a way that the animated series in the 90s was iconically Batman, but it also had this horror theme throughout the whole thing. Every villain is scarier than they have been previously, partly because of Greg Capullo's art, and partially because that's just Scott Snyder. He has a background as a horror author, and he still likes to do that kind of stuff. So this is him kind of finding a balance between those two. But metatextually, when you look at the whole story arc, it is kind of just a remix of what Grant Morrison had just done with Batman the years before. I would say if Grant is the kind of indie artist doing his own thing with Batman, Scott Snyder is the more mainstream version of that same kind of music. And it's kind of like, you could say Scott is almost ripping Grant off. I would think that is not a good assessment of Scott's work, but there are so many clear parallels between what Grant did and what Scott did that you can't ignore it. It's right there in the bones of what Scott is doing, and it's still good. I still love it. It's doing its own thing. It stands well on its own, but I also just can't ignore like how much of Scott's work is a remix of Grant's work, and Grant's work they were literally finishing and starting each other, because Scott was kind of the new guy working on Detective Comics, with Nightwing taking out the role as Batman while Grant was still writing the main Batman book. And then the New 52 happened, and Scott takes over as the main Batman writer, and Grant is allowed to finish his story in this kind of weird thing, because they didn't really change Batman's history. They just made it shorter for some reason, because continuity reboot is weird. But yeah, Scott became the main Batman writer, and then Grant became the secondary writer, and their works kind of overlap in that weird manner, where they kind of have a role reversal about who's writing the main Batman book. And yeah, you can't ignore the connection between their books and how their overarching stories, like when you look at start to finish of both of them, how they parallel each other. And like I said, I think Scott's work is basically the pop version of what Grant did. But yeah, I think those are the best eras of Batman comics, period. So I hope that answers your question.